Hello and welcome to this week's About Manchester podcast. Monday the 17th of May sees the welcome reopening of indoor hospitality as part of the government's plans to come out of lockdown. And in today's podcast we talk to two people who will be at the centre of that reopening. Adrian Ellis is in charge of the Lowry Hotel in Salford and is also head of the Manchester Hoteliers Association. Adam Reckert is the general manager of the Hilton Hotel on Deansgate. You might have seen their illuminated countdown to the 17th on the side of the hotel. Off the ground. So really a question to both of you to start off. How has the last 12 months been?
Adam can start.
Tough, Nigel. Yeah, I wish there was another way of describing it, but tough. It's certainly not a 12 months I would ever want to relive again. I'm sure that everyone feels exactly the same way. It's been quite eye-opening as well. But yeah, I'm glad now that we're finally coming to the end of the 12 months.
Yeah, same, Nigel, from our perspective, very difficult trading. I mean, you sort of lose track a little bit of all the things that happen from lockdowns to tiers 2, tier 3. We find when we're sort of recounting things over the last 12 months, it's hard to recount. There were so many changes during that time. I think notable for us was trying to digest all the government rules and regulations was very challenging. So as they came in, each tier, each lockdown had new messaging to give out to staff members and for guests to try to digest. So I think the communications was very challenging for everybody, and a very difficult period. Of course, trading was extremely low for all hotels. However you sliced and diced it, has been a very tough period. So, but thank goodness light is at the end of the tunnel and we're opening next Monday. I'm sure we're all very glad to see that day come.
Just on that note, to both of you, has the communication been better this time round? Do you know exactly what you need to be doing?
Yeah, I certainly think, the early days, you go back to the first lockdown, it was very tough. We were getting messages and nobody could quite digest, and other GMs were calling me and I was calling other GMs, and then you try and find out for your friends, and it wasn't awfully clear. So there was lots of sketchy stuff. They'd announced something and then the detail behind it was not clear. So we've learned by experience. So some of the things, of course, the new regulations are updating the previous ones or the slight amendments. So I think the fact we've all got used to it and experienced what we needed to do in the first wave, I think therefore we're able to digest. And also you find your own way, I think. Sometimes there's a rule which is also not 100% crystal clear, but you know that if you interpret it to your best of your abilities, that'll work well. So it's definitely better than it was a year ago, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, as Adrian said, you get used to it as well. There's so much juggling of the communication that comes through, and there's such a vast amount of communication as well that comes through that trying to sift through it all to get to the real story sometimes took a little bit of getting used to, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And sometimes actually it made it difficult when you got advance announcement of changes that were to come. And often the easiest thing to do was actually just to stand still rather than trying to react to every single story you heard. And once you had a confirmed way forward, then you move your team forward that way. Otherwise, I think that it was quite exhausting, not just for us having to try and steer the hotel, but for our teams as well, as we were constantly asking different things of them.
Okay. And looking to the future, I mean, there's a number of issues still arising at the moment. There's the rules that we don't yet know about social distancing after June. But I suppose the more important is the customers, really. It looks like a lot of the country is going to be closed down for foreign tourists, certainly. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be a move towards sort of staycation packages and people visiting places. So do you think you're going to have to adapt your hotels differently to that?
Yes. Sorry, jumping in on this one, but yes, absolutely. It's the only market at the moment that's producing. We're starting to see some very, very slow but encouraging signs of local corporate business returning. But if truth be told, I'm not really expecting any strength in that market until second quarter next year. the same with conventions as well. Obviously, we've got the Conservative Party conference in October that I very much hope will go ahead. But otherwise, there are no large city demand-driving events happening at all this year. So if you don't adapt to what the market has to offer, you will simply get no occupancy. And for a hotel like ours, for example, we have always built ourselves up on local corporate and large conventions, residential meetings. So having now to change tack quite so dramatically to try and appeal to a local leisure market, it's coming with difficulties, but it's an enjoyable one as well because it's a new direction for the hotel.
Okay.
Yeah, similar story to Adam's, Nigel. That there is only staycation at the moment, so that's we're all working on the leisure part. The bits that will take some time is the corporate meeting business and international, as you've alluded to. So we think that probably be next year. We also, perhaps encouraging signs, we also see a little bit of that coming through. A few small meetings, a few society events, a little bit of corporate. So it's not completely dead in the water, but we think it's a much more gradual recovery process. And international, I don't think, when we were already in the summer, aren't we? So I don't think there's going to be the sort of tour series that the city normally sees, probably not until, hopefully it'll come back in 22. So slower on some markets, but to your point about staycations and Adam's point as well, I think that looks very strong. I think weekends for all of us will be busy from the word go. People coming back, they've been locked in for so long, so they want to go shopping or go to attractions or go to museums or go to restaurants, whatever they want to do. So I think leisure business will be good for all of us from the word go.
Okay. Do you both think that customer behaviour will change though?
So I think it will. I mean, yes and no is my answer to that. It doesn't help you alone. We're watching this. When we see people coming back for the spa and terrace, I have to say no. We're very guarded, and I'm not sure how Adam's playing this whole thing, but from our point of view, we're coming back with almost the same sort of measures that we had last summer. So all the COVID regulations everywhere, lots of deep cleaning, lots of I guess hand sanitizers. We've got thermal cameras in the front lobby. We've got all the things we had last summer. We're not taking any of them away at the moment. But our observations from the few weeks of trading whilst we've been having the terrace and spa is the guest behavior is actually to not everybody, but let's say 95% is they're just absolutely delighted to be back, and they're not really clocking all the COVID measures, all the things you're doing, or even asking questions about it. They're just delighted to be back. I guess they feel reassured that we're doing our very best in all the measures. But I've not seen, I guess to your point about customer behavior, I've not seen many guests that are really sort of COVID-centric, looking to quiz you or want detailed analysis about every procedure you're doing. I almost none of that. We once or twice we'll get questions about, are we expected to wear masks in the hotel, or when we're moving around the hotel, guests are asked this, but not a lot. Most people, the behaviors we're seeing is mostly we want to get back to normal. What we've missed going back and going into hospitality, and we want to get back to normality as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, as Adrian says, we have a duty of care to our guests, and so we have to make sure that we're abiding by the rules and regulations that are in place. And rightly so as well. I think for the leisure guests, then, as Adrian said, no, I don't think there'll be much of a mindset there to change. They're paying to go away and to have an experience, and so they don't necessarily want to be hampered by any of the rules and regulations we have to follow. I think that we'll probably see a lot of difference, however, for local corporate travelers. And certainly for any residential meetings where we will have to reassure and we will have to make certain that we've put every prevention measure in place to provide that level of security, because I think they will be looking for different things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There have been reports and sort of nationally that there have been some labour shortage and problems with getting people back to work. Have you found that in Manchester?
The challenges never go away, Nigel. They just vary. I think that, perhaps the surprising element of as we move into this period of reopening is that, because I think, not naively, but perhaps all of us thought, well, with so many people having had to let go during this period of closure. Therefore, the market will be buoyant if you needed to look for one or two people. But it's combined. So the labour market, I think you hit the nail on the head. It is probably one of the bigger challenges we'll all see when we reopen. And it's combined by multiple things, certainly from our perspective. So we had quite a lot of European staff. They've gone back to their base countries and not returning home. And that can be related to Brexit and other things. So there's an element there we've lost. Some people during the year have gone on to do other things as a source of income. So they could be working at Amazon or working in retail or whatever they've gone to do. And they quite liked it. And so they're not returning to hospitality because they've enjoyed their year doing another job. So there's sort of a mixed bag. And some people, we found not a lot, but there's some people who want to take an easier life. So they want to do part-time, they want more time with their family or whatever they want to do. So they don't want to go back to full-time. So there's different factors at play, but it is compounding on a compression in the labour market. So it is right to point out that is one of the challenges, I think, when we reopen, because of course we're all reopening at the same time. Yeah. So the first weekend after we reopen, you can imagine every restaurant, bar and hotel in the country is all operating, all going to be pretty full, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the need for staff is huge. And you do see some scary stories, especially in the ones that are up and running already. I mean, the external terrace business. So you do see some scary stories. I read yesterday, in fact, Cornwall and Devon having to sort of curtail their operations down to 2 or 3 days a week because they can't find staff.
Right.
So hopefully we don't get to those sort of scenarios where we're having to cut back what we're doing. But this challenge you're pointing out is definitely there. I think we can all see it.
Yep, I think nothing really to add. It is going to be an issue, and I think that there will be more and more cases of hospitality venues struggling in the first couple of weeks of reopening. At the moment, we're all still assuming that the vast majority of the team members that have said they're going to come back will come back. But we still see, and I don't know if Adrian's the same, people with a couple of days left to go saying, actually, you know what, I'm not sure this is for me anymore, either because they found another job or because they would prefer a different life. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge, certainly, over the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And the other challenge,
not longer.
Okay. And is the other challenge been in suppliers? Have you found that a lot of suppliers are no longer around or struggling because of the past 12 months?
Personally, no. The majority of the suppliers that we have are Hilton nominated suppliers. And so there has always been an element of business. A lot that I've spoken to, be they working in hotel linen or food and beverage supplies, have struggled and they've had to adapt as hotels and hospitality venues have had to adapt, but they are still there, which is terrific news.
Okay. Yeah, so same for us. We've got some long-standing suppliers. They tend to be fairly big suppliers anyhow, so they've somehow weathered the storm. And I can't actually give you any examples of suppliers that are no longer with us. Almost all of them, I think, have kept going somehow, some way, and therefore, yes, we're returning to the same suppliers again. Now we're reopening.
Okay. Crises often produce opportunities as well. What opportunities do you think the hotel industry will take from this post-pandemic period?
I think one thing I think we've all been quite good at is creativity, coming with new ideas. So I guess the one that's obvious to our industry anyhow is the at-home dining that we all did, or lots of people did, during this period of time, where you could have pre-prepared meals ready for people to collect. And that was quite an example of creativity, but people have used space more wisely. So lots of people were doing packages where you could work from the bar or work in a room, for example, as an office space. So people were using this period quite creatively, and I think that's something we'll continue to do, looking for ways in which hotels can provide for the market that we're in. I can see already lots of hotels are sort of turning their mind to staycation business, knowing that that's the big thing for the coming months, and creating children's play areas and more bespoke sort of tourist guides to cover things like museums and attractions, things that are going to be open, and providing those. If you're normally a corporate hotel, they're switching their pace a bit. So I think probably the biggest thing is the creative approach that the industry's done very well, I think, in the last year to adapt and change accordingly to the best of their abilities. I think that will probably continue.
Okay.
Exactly the same. I think creativity has been forced on the industry, which is a good thing. I think everyone can be guilty from time to time of sitting back, perhaps, and letting the wheels continue in motion. You know your operation, you know what works, what doesn't work. But that comfort level means that you don't always have the opportunity to press the pause button and really review what you're doing and move in a completely different direction. I think this gap that we've now had has afforded everyone that time to really reflect on what works and what doesn't work for their business, and perhaps change tack and actually move in a slightly different, more creative direction.
Okay. Finally, a question to both of you. Will Manchester rise again, and will it get back to where it was?
Better believe it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Adrian, you take this one first.
Yeah, well, if one thing Manchester's famous for, I think, is its resilience. You saw that after, there's been some not so good things. I think we've bounced back for, including the bombing recently, and the city's very resilient and grows and will bounce back, I'm very sure, very quickly and better than before. I mean, I think before the pandemic, you saw there was statistics showing there was the most cranes in Europe are in Manchester currently in terms of development. And we know in our industry, Adam and I know in our industries, hotels are also opening left, right and centre. There's 5 big hotels opening this year. Yes, it's been tough, no question of it, but will it bounce back? For sure it will bounce back, but probably bigger than better. I think our future for the coming 10 years is very buoyant, very strong, very dynamic marketplace, lots of investment. So yeah, I'm very sure of the recovery.
Yep, exactly the same. Exactly the same. Manchester is a city that just has so much resilience to it. Yeah. So while I think that it will still take a little bit of time to move past this, no doubt we will move past this bigger, better, and stronger than before.
Okay. Well, thank you both for joining us today, and I wish you all the success for the 17th of May, and look forward to coming to see you very shortly.
Thank you, Nigel. Thanks, Adam. Look forward to seeing you on Monday, of course. Good luck with the preps.
Thank you. Speak soon.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.